Huge thanks to the Electric Lodge for supporting this work. It's really appreciated. Howdy. If anyone likes local news served up fearlessly, please take a picture of the QR code. How's everyone doing? It's a loaded question, I know. We've all been through a lot. By show of hands, I'm just curious if it's just me, but does anyone think the government's doing a good job? Just checking. By show of hands, how many people here love the ocean and would like to see it protected? All right. Good. That's what we're here to talk about. How many people have been up PCH to see Malibu? By another show of hands. It's not easy to get into.
No.
All right. So I'm about to show you what basically west of PCH looks like from Malibu to Topanga in 33 seconds. Wow. So next slide, please. And Gabe, I think you have to play it. So just for some context there, no one in the last 50 years has seen the ocean on that drive, basically. So what I did next is to sort of understand it, I made a map. And where no structures where there were no structures, and I did it, it was a DIY process, sort of slowing down the video and tying it to county tax maps. And where it's green is where there's no structures. So what you're seeing is basically from Big Rock to Carbon Canyon, about 90% of structures have been removed, destroyed. Next slide. So this project is called Abracadabra, and this is how things come into the world. So by saying them here and by drawing them, this is how this project is going to come into the world. So next, please. An important tool for architects is precedence, so I'm going to go through 6 of them really quickly because time is short. So Olmsted Parks and Playgrounds for the Los Angeles region. In 1927, the landscape architecture firm Olmsted Brothers and Bartholomew Associates were commissioned to create a plan for Los Angeles. Their plan, published in 1930, included preserving large areas of wilderness in Malibu, connected by ribbons of linear parkways. What happened? The visionary plan for Los Angeles was ignored because of greed. Powerful real estate developers suppressed the plan so they could get rich by impoverishing the city, and boy did they. Instead of protecting its wilderness, LA desecrated it. Los Angeles paved everything it could and made it impossible to get to beaches safely without cars, which was its original sin. The fires are an opportunity for a reset to fix this. Michael Sorkin, local court. Sorkin speaks about urban theories of desirability, which this is. The first code is the right to human locomotion in the built environment. Freya Otto talks about paths and networks. We need to think beyond roads for cars. While there's public enjoyment and social betterment, there's also public safety. We need alternative evacuation routes when natural disasters close off roads to cars. Edward Ricketts. Ricketts is the character in Cannery Row. He wrote The Log of the Sea of Cortez with Steinbeck. The book is the result of that trip. It's in the Intertidal Zone textbook for oceanography students 50 years later. Have you seen the film My Octopus Teacher?
Yeah.
Who here?
Yeah.
Okay. That's what Santa Monica Bay used to be like. Today it's basically dead. And by the way, it wasn't that long ago. In the 1950s, it was thriving with life like that movie. This is a snippet from an essay I wrote. When we rebuild civilization, which I suspect we will be forced to do, this must never happen again. Our way of life cannot, must not, be the cause for so many organisms' stress, suffering, and extinction. Learning how to live connected with nature when the planet forces civilization to change is a necessary and urgent idea for how to live in this new age we have entered. Now, when I wrote it, I didn't realize it would be so soon. Jacques Cousteau said, "We forget that the water cycle and the life cycle are one. We think of the ocean as a place that holds life, not something that is itself alive. there's a hidden umbilical cord connecting the ocean to humanity. And the way to address climate change in a productive way is not by purchasing electric vehicles to run errands in the city, rather to reconnect with nature and protect biodiversity. This is the deeper ecological thinking of this plan that I'm about to show you. And in this space that we're all in, which is so confusing, if you aren't sure what to do this. Fall deeply in love with the ocean. Next slide. So these are two other precedents. Nicholas Canyon, another precedent, is a beach in northern Malibu known to surfers at zeros. No one who visits this place and enjoys this beautiful wild spot thinks what this place needs is a fence to keep me out of 49 houses, which is what was there before it was returned to the people in 1975. And then Santa Monica Bike Path, which is also present. We can't imagine the city without it, and most of us aren't aware that a small group of property owners prevented it from being built for 20 years. Mm-hmm. Next slide. So this is the idea of the plan, and I'm showing it here from on the bottom left-hand corner is the Malibu Pier, and it goes to basically Chautauqua and Will Rogers, and it's basically turning Pacific Coast Highway into Pacific Coast Parkway. Next slide. What's very important in this plan is the intertidal restoration zone, which will basically protect, it's starting with protection of the intertidal zone completely, and then it'll have a biodiversity corridor, which will have beneficial plants for the Lapopredia, for the birds, for all the insects, and then within this biodiversity corridor is that's what you'll be able to cycle through. So when you're cycling, you'll just be in a garden of green. And then there's a walking path, and then existing roads. Next slide. So this is what a typical section would look like. Between the break and the beach is the intertidal zone. You see a surfer showing the walking path, and a cyclist inside the path, and then that's traditional. You have a lane for parking, a lane for moving south, an emergency lane, and a lane for moving north. And we'll be developing more sections, but this is what it could look like. Next slide. So this is another sort of closer view. This is Gladstone's, which is sort of the gateway to the Palisades, and this most beautiful land that is owned by the people. The state has given out to a parking concession. And if you're an architect or you read drawings, at this point where we're at, this drawing should enrage you. Next slide. And this is what it could easily look like as a park within the path. And we already own this land. And I'm just sort of showing you as an example of how badly things have been run in this city for such a long time. Next slide. So this is what's happening on our beaches right now. And I will have to say, the entire city needs to pay attention to this with huge urgency. There are approximately 195 piles of debris between Carbon Canyon and Big Rock that need to be removed with urgency. Everyone needs to be focused on this, and this needs to be removed before the next rains. And the other thing is, these houses should have never been built, and they cannot be rebuilt. And if you look at this, these are the pilings. This is not people's land. This is pilings for homes that are in the intertidal zone that, at best, they're sand at low tide, and they're underwater at high tide all the time. Next slide. So let me give you an update of the project. This is an unbelievable thing that happened, but you cannot write this in Hollywood, and we're in Venice, so we're not in Hollywood. But a rocket scientist who's a captain at Space Force just joined the project as our project manager. So, and he's going to be promoted to major. So that's the only we have a city planner on board now. We have a couple of architects. The kelp scientists just contacted us and they're on board. The team is growing, and we're planning to have a plan in about a month that we're going to introduce to the public, and hopefully 10 million people in LA will know about it. And just to end, I wanted to give a voice to the voiceless. So next slide. So we're going to have a little note from the grunions, from the sea turtles, and the invertebrates. Thank you very much.
Could you show your QR code again?
Yeah.
And mention your Instagram.
Yeah, it's.
You're doing
they-
amazing
What
stuff
would
on
you say how to
Instagram.
how to
Thank
connect
you.
with you?
Yeah, the Instagram has been, it's just been. I don't trust the algorithm. I don't like Mark Zuckerberg, but it's been an amazing tool. Gabe, could you fire up the second slide, please? Yeah, that's the best way at this time to contact me.
Harris has developed this, I'm sure, hours and hours and hours and hours, but he's taken advantage of Max 10 to develop this intellectual idea. So Max 10 is not just for us performers that like to get
I have
up
to
here
tell
and
you,
dance.
this Max 10 is the most amazing thing because I don't work on my shtick. Every time I come here, I develop more work. And so it's really been in their support of this project. From when I first presented this project, people thought it was like they didn't even understand it. And now we're in a historic opportunity, and this could really come into the world. And this will change the city. And we have to do this because we can never be in this situation again. So that's it over there. Take a picture and you can find me. And also the Substack, there's very, very deep thinking that comes from a body of writing that's in observations of the natural world. And again, Joel, thank you so much.
Thank you.